G'day, fuckheads. We're really getting to a point where I should stop using that as my introduction. I'm basically getting instantly demonetized every time I upload, and I have to get it manually reviewed before I can get my pretty green icon back. This does confuse me because you would think a manual review of my video would end with me getting another community violation strike, but I ain't complaining. After a solid streak of 40k, it's time to go back to our roots and explore the High Elves. I'm honestly surprised I've never covered these guys in the past. Their pointy penis hats and insecure superiority complex is quite memeable, and we can draw quite a lot of similarities between them and all the other pretentious white colonists out there. Say what you will, but the High Elves have some of the coolest and most badass characters in the entirety of Warhammer Fantasy. Anarion, Aletha Na, Eleutharion, Kalidor are just some of the absolute beasts they have produced. From one-shotting greater demons to killing Kane to becoming respected and feared by orcs, some of these dudes are fucking insane. Today we'll cover who the High Elves are and where they came from. We'll also check out some of the more interesting High Elf characters and go over what happens to them during the end times. We'll also quickly cover their appearance in Age of Sigmar, but only briefly though, as we don't have too many suicidal thoughts. Hopefully by the end of this video, you will no longer see the High Elves as just a bunch of technologically stagnant pointy-headed and instead see them for what they truly are. Technologically stagnant pointy-headed with a couple of cool dudes thrown in. Let's get into it. When the world was young and had not received a good old-fashioned anal raping from chaos, a powerful intergalactic race of overpowered toads, called the Old Ones, were fucking around and creating new races. One of the races they created were the Elves, as they needed a good source of big titty girlfriends that their other creation, the Lizard Men, just couldn't provide. If you want to see the Old Ones' personal collection of big titty hentai, then head over to my Patreon. Just $1 gives you access to dozens of Old One approved art. Anywho, all was well in the world, but then the Chaos Nation attacked. The Great Polar Gates, big teleporters that the Old Ones used to travel to other planets, suddenly collapsed and flooded the world with chaotic energy. Millions of demons sprung forward and began fucking shit up. They invaded the high elven island of Ulthuan and began massacring the elves, as the Old Ones forgot to teach the elves how to fight a war. Shit was not going so well until an elf by the name of Anarion was like, "Jeez Louise," and hurled himself into the fires of Asuryan, which was the main elven god. When Anarion emerged from the flames, he was reborn as a demigod and began massacring the demons. He was even able to one-shot their greater demon commander with nothing but a wooden hunting spear. He rallied the elves and was able to push back the tides of chaos back to their desolate shitholes. He worked with the priests of Vol to create weapons and armor for his armies, and he became best buddies with Kalidor Dragon Tamer, who was a sexy ass wizard. However, constantly slaying a metric fuckton of demons doesn't cure the cancer, that is chaos, but merely treats the symptoms. For every demon that was banished by Anarion, 1,000 more took its place. In a constant state of war, the elves were slowly but surely losing, and Anarion knew it. Kalidor, being a smart cunt, was like, "Yo, what if we cast a big fuck-off massive spell that drains a significant amount of magic from the world, depriving the demons of their power and saving us?" So Anarion was like, what's the chance that it miscasts? And Kalidor was like, yeah, look, it's about an 85% chance of miscast. And Anarion was like, what happens if it miscasts? And old mate Kalidor was like, yeah, look, if it miscasts, then it causes a massive fuck-off explosion, which would make Hiroshima look like a drop in a pond. We would all get obliterated and the demons would be free to teabag our corpses for all eternity. Needless to say, Anarion wasn't super down with Kalidor's plan, and he vetoed it. Despite knowing that victory was impossible, he would rather fight and preserve his people for as long as he could, as opposed to potentially nuking the fuck out of everything. That was until a new solution presented itself in the form of Anarion's wife and children getting brutally massacred by the forces of chaos. This pushed Anarion to fly over to the Shrine of Khaine and draw the Widowmaker, the most powerful weapon in Warhammer Fantasy, a sword that could kill gods. Now, no one was too keen on this, as Khaine is a psychopath, and drawing his sword has a lot of consequences, not just for Anarion but also his future family and the elven race as a whole. Hence, on his way to draw the sword, the other gods of the elves were like, "Bro, don't do it," but he ignored him. Then the gods of chaos spoke to him and said, "Bro, it was just a prank, please don't take the sword," but he too ignored them. Finally, at the shrine, his wife's ghost appeared to him and begged him not to take it, but he ignored her and took the sword. Anarion became not only the demigod avatar of Asuryan, but now also the demigod avatar of Khaine combined. He then proceeded to skull fuck Chaos a new arsehole, as he was just one-shotting everything left, right and center. the elves experienced peace for the first time in years, as the forces of chaos were massacred by the unstoppable might of the baddest motherfucker to walk the planet. Despite the time of peace, the Sword of Cain made Anarion a massive douchebag. He fucked Morathi and spawned Malekith, two people that would cause massive problems down the track, and he even threatened his old friend Kalidor when Kalidor was like, dude, you're being a bit of a douche. The peace, it was never meant to last, as the full might of chaos once again came to Ulthuan. It was way bigger than anything that had ever come before it, and not even Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan, War, Asaurian, Cain, Kaioken times 20 Anarion could stop it. So Kalidor was like, fuck this, and he began creating the vortex without permission. And Marion had a moment of clarity and realized what a douchebag he'd been. So by the power of friendship, he came to Kalidor's aid to protect him while the vortex was created. During the battle, Anarion was able to defeat the 4 strongest greater demons in existence in a 1v4 fight, killing all of them, but suffering a mortal wound in the process. The vortex is finished, Kalidor gets trapped in it, and Anarion returns the Sword of Cain and promptly dies, saving the world and forever cursing his bloodline, with his known relatives being Tyrion, Teclis, and Malekith, and the other ones, but they don't fucking matter. In case anyone is confused about how the curse affects each of these legendary characters, allow me to explain. The curse is two-sided. It gives power, but also gives a fatal flaw. For Teclis, he is very crippled and could barely walk or lift a sword. He overcomes this somewhat through the use of extremely powerful potions. Malekith's curse is pretty obvious. He's an insecure asshole who fucks his mum for validation. Tyrion's curse is the more subtle one, but it's the worst out of all of them. He is doomed to follow in Anarion's footsteps and one day redraw the Sword of Cain, causing problems for everyone. After the shit show with Anarion and Chaos, the High Elves prospered under their new king Bel-Shanaar. Now it might be like, what about Malekith? He was the son of Anarion and was not yet a total dick. And while Malekith was considered for the role, the elves preferred to have a chilled out, level-headed leader rather than a little goth kid. Malekith was gracious about it and praised the new king, when in truth he was extremely pissed about it, but he hid it extremely well. The Elven kingdoms grew very quick. They created colonies all over the world and became best mates with the dwarves. As a sign of friendship, the High Elf king gifted the dwarves a bottle of Grey Goose vodka, said to be so pure it tasted almost like water, which the Dawi king necked all in one go. And in return, the dwarves gave them a casket of moonshine, which the Elven king didn't neck because it tasted like an aborted fetus. Not that I would know what that tastes like, but you get my point. A quick point to make, Malekith was chosen as the elven diplomat to the dwarves, and became close mates with their king, Snorri Whitebeard. More on that later. Either way, things were going swell. However, as we know, elves are all filthy fucking thoughts, so when times are rough they band together and become badasses, but when times are easy they create dozens of pleasure cults and begin murder fucking each other, with Morathi, Malekith's mum, being the leader of them. To be fair, the idea of a bunch of insanely hot big titty elven girlfriends giving me drugs then fucking my brains out sounds like a pretty good time. I can't really blame the elves for being a bunch of deprived cunts. Anywho, Malekith comes home and vows to purge all the thoughts, and he does a good job of rounding them up. He even arrests his own mum. He conveniently locks them up all in his homeland of Naggareth. Bel-Shanaar is like, yo dude, nice, you really helped me out there, man. And Malekith replies with, yeah, you're a fucking thought, and he declares Bel-Shanaar as a member of the pleasure cults. Before old mate Bel can deny this, Malekith poisons him to death and declares himself the new Phoenix King. Fair enough. He then orders his men to massacre all the elven princes in attendance, and then he does a swan dive into the flames of Asaurian to gain its power and complete the ritual, to become the next Phoenix King. Now this next bit is something that gives me and everyone else the shits. Originally, Malekith jumps into the fire, and Asaurian is like, yo, you're a fucking filthy emo cunt, fuck off, and burns him to a crisp for trying to steal the power of Asaurian without being worthy. However, in the end times, it's revealed that Asaurian was totally cool with this regicidal, egomaniac, ancestral rapist to become king. If only he stood in the fires for a little bit longer. What the fuck? What a terrible recon of the law. What makes it worse is that every Phoenix King after Anarion apparently required a team of mages protecting them as they walked into the fire because Asaurian wanted to kill them. Hence they were all cursed by their own god, which explains why most of the Phoenix Kings met very unfortunate endings. But this doesn't make any sense at all, as the first Phoenix King after Anarion, Belshazzar, didn't know he wasn't worthy, hence why didn't he get burnt to a crisp? Surely there was some trial and error at least before they figured it out. Did Bel have a secret Phoenix King before him that was incinerated but got covered up so the elven race wouldn't discover their main god hated them? Why would Asuryan favour Malekith and the Dark Elves, elves that don't even like Asuryan that much, over his extremely loyal and morally good High Elves? Fuck you, Games Workshop. Anywho, Malekith gets his smouldering emo cunt corpse carried away, and a massive full-blown civil war begins for control of Ulthuan. Kalidor I, grandson of the OG mage Kalidor, who's still stuck in the vortex at this point, takes command. Neither side can beat the other, so Malekith, being a really bad sport about the whole situation, decided he would try and undo the vortex and let the demons just rape everyone, cause if I can't have it, neither can you apparently. You really picked a winner here, eh, Asuryan, you fucking flaming pelican cunt. Malekith and his magical thoughts begin to undo the vortex, and they nearly succeed. However, the weakening of the vortex removes OG Kalidor from stasis, and he's like, what the fuck? And he launched a final Kamehameha right back at Malekith, sundering Nagaroth and forcing the elves, now called the Dark Elves, or Druchi if you're a fucking weeb, off Ulthuan and towards Canada. The High Elves and Dark Elves would continue to be mortal enemies for the rest of time, as they fought and skirmished with each other. The Phoenix King Kalidor was slain during one of these skirmishes, hence the rule went to his son Kalidor II. Unfortunately, Kalidor II was some autistic rage cunt who was obsessed with war and had an ego that was bigger than Sigmar's balls. Because of how good a job Kalidor I had done, Malekith could not invade Ulthuan without getting raped, so instead he decided to get his men to dress up as High Elves and raid dwarven trade lines. Malekith originally just wanted to ruffle some feathers and cause diplomatic penalties between the two superpowers, but he didn't realise Kalidor II was such a massive cunt, hence his plan permanently crippled both factions. See, the king of the dwarves at the time was pissed off, but tried to be diplomatic about the situation, but the High Elves were so embarrassed by the whole civil war affair that they refused to tell their allies that the Dark Elves even existed. So when the dwarven ambassador arrived in Ulthuan and asked why elves were attacking Darway Caverns, Kalidor II replied with, "Fuck off, you dumb little cunt," and shaved off the Darway's beard, the ultimate shame. Hence began the War of the Beard, a conflict so vast it resulted in the decimation of the High Elf and Dwarven race, and the complete loss of High Elf presence in the old world. It would also lead to the creation of the Wood Elves, as they broke off from the High Elves due to how incompetent Kalidor II had been. I'm not going to cover the details of the War of the Beard, as I've already made a video about it you can check out, link will be in the comments and description, but yeah, it wasn't good. Kalidor II ended with his brains being splattered by the Dwarven King's mighty hammer. A new king was elected, a simple, level-headed soldier who recalled all of the High Elves home to defend Ulthuan from another fuck-off massive Dark Elf invasion. It really makes you wonder. The elves seem to breed like rabbits, as every couple hundred of years they get into cataclysmic wars with each other that seemingly kill millions of elves. Not really sure how that works, but well. The new king kept Ulthuan safe for hundreds of years and became the first Phoenix King to die of old age, in bed. Nice. Also kind of disproves the recon about Asuryan cursing them, but you know, ooh, fuck you. The next Phoenix King was a racist, for he hated the Dark Elves with a burning passion. This turned out to be a pretty good motivator for him, as he was able to completely drive out the Dark Elves from Ulthuan, something that his predecessor had been unable to do. He died under mysterious circumstances after feeding the Dark Elves at the altar of Cain. It is unknown if he was killed by a Dark Elf assassin, or if his own bodyguard killed him when he went to go draw the Sword of Cain. Either way, he did his job and was a pretty solid dude. After some justified racial genocide, the next 1,000 years or so were peaceful times for the High Elves. The next couple of kings were wise scholars who expanded the High Elf culture dramatically and founded the Lawmasters of Hoeth, as well as their bladed counterparts. It was a time of peace, which unfortunately led to the High Elves being a bunch of pussies, allowing the Dark Elves to return and once again repeat the cycle of a massive fuck-off war, where everyone dies, but they also live. I don't know, man. I wish the writers could decide if the elves were a dying race or literally countless in number. They keep referencing how the elven population was declining and the cities were half empty, but they could always muster massive armies capable of beating any enemy. Eventually, after a couple more unremarkable dudes that kept Ulthuan afloat, we reached the current pre-end times era, the emergence of Finubar the Seafarer, as well as the overpowered as fuck Tyrion and Teclis, who were also direct descendants of Venerian, via his first marriage. Once again, Malekith returns to Ulthuan and begins wrecking shit. This time he very nearly conquers the entire island, as the armies of the High Elves are beaten and Avalon is taken. Alariel, the Everqueen, barely escapes due to Tyrion fucking up everyone in his path and guiding her out of the shitfest. Tyrion is able to defeat numerous assassination attempts against Alariel as he strives to bring her to safety, however each time he is wounded and poisoned. These acts of bravery got Alariel all slippery and moist for Tyrion, because we have established elves are thoughts. Eventually Malekith is like, fuck these dumbass assassins, and he sends a demon of Slaanesh to go rape Alariel's ass. By the time it catches up with them, Tyrion is too weak to fight it and he gets knocked in his ass. However, before the demon can unleash some tentacle hentai tier shit on Alariel, Teclis appears and one-shots the demon. Honestly, name a more iconic duo than Teclis and one-shots. Teclis is the king of one-shotting shit. He might walk with a limp, but he'll fuck up anyone with a flick of his wrist. With Alariel safe, the remaining High Elf armies gather together and fight Malekith. The battle starts going really bad for the High Elves, so Teclis decides to one-shot Malekith, burning his ass again and banishing him to the realms of chaos. Sucks to be Malekith. Without Malekith blocking his spells, Teclis yeets the entire Dark Elf army with a couple of well-placed one-shots, while Tyrion looks cool slicing everything around him into ribbons. They then save all of Ulthuan via the power of turbo twin rapage that only two overpowered twins could provide. Hell yeah! Teclis would go on to visit Magnus the Pious and the Empire to one-shot all the Chaos Hordes invading them there, whilst Tyrion would get it on with Alariel despite her being married to his king, Finubar. Apparently this is socially acceptable, however, because as we have established, elves are thoughts. They even had a kid together. Malekith eventually returns, but the whole affair fucked him up pretty good, and he was a bit of a salty little sausage for a while. That invasion was the last significant one until the end times occurred. Now, a number of badass side characters have emerged during this time. I've covered Eletharion and Alethanar in their own videos, so I won't drag this video out on about them. But basically, Eletharion was so badass and so good at massacring orcs that orcs respected him and sought him out to find a worthy foe, while Aleth was so badass that once Malekith destroyed his home and family, he waged a guerrilla war against the Dark Elves so fierce and ruthless that he's literally become their literal boogeyman. The current captain of the Phoenix Guard, Caradrian, used to be an arrogant douchebag like most elves are. Then one day Asuryan was like, yo, and turned him into a badass demigod defender of Ulthuan who no longer spoke. Fair enough, but once again goes to show how stupid the end times are. It would be a very weird thing of Asuryan to do to bless an enemy of Malekith with the powers to fight him and his Dark Elves if Malekith was his chosen one all along. Then we have Insulin. He was a pretty nifty sea lord who smashed Norskin and Dark Elf fleets to bits. He was eventually confronted by Lockyer Felhart, who impaled him and threw him into the sea, causing him to become the avatar of the sea god Mathlan. Imric of Calidor is a descendant of OG Calidor, and he likes dragons, and he's a pretty cool dude. He once got mad at a Bretonnian king during a battle, because the king stole too many of his kills. Then there is Belinar the Wise, who trained Teclis in the art of one-shotting, despite not being great at it himself. He's a smart bloke, but overall pretty unremarkable. He's got a lot of really cool items though, like his book allows him to revive from the dead, and he's got a pretty big sword. For all intents and purposes, any High Elf in this video I have not mentioned by name is irrelevant. Now, before we get into the fuckery that is the end times, let's have a look at the biology of an elf as well as their flawed and potentially incestuous political system. As a rule, elves can live up to 1,000 years old. However, it is rare for an elf to reach that age due to all the war and stress of near constant annihilation. Despite this, some elves can extend their lives beyond this significantly. Morathi, Malekith and Helebron do this through some pretty nasty ass magic. However, it is also said an elf cannot die of old age if they have unfinished business, hence Malekith is probably powered by that as well. Another elf who suits into that criteria and who's too pissed off to die is Alethanar, who is really fucking old. He was alive for when Malekith originally betrayed the High Elves and killed Belshazzar. Finally, an elf can also extend their age well beyond its normal span if they fuse their spirit with a god, which is the case for Ariel and Orion of the Wood Elves. Ulthuan is broken into a number of provinces. all of them unique in their own way. Safri is full of virgin nerds who do magic all day. Illyrian is full of dudes that fuck their horses. Kalador is full of dudes that jerk off to dragons. Nagaroth is full of depressed emos. I don't know how to say that. Krace or Thrace or Rape is full of dudes who fuck lions. Korthink, I don't know how to say that either, is full of dudes that shove fish up their anal orifices. Avalon is full of tree-hugging hippies, and Lorthan is full of Jews. Oh yeah, and then there's Tyrannok, who make chariots, but no one gives a fuck about them. There's also Yves on the eastern side, but that's ruled by Eletharion, and he's a G, so I won't make fun of it. Each province has a number of princes that represent them on the main council. They act as advisors to the Phoenix King, however the Phoenix King's authority is absolute. A Phoenix King is elected by the princes of Ulthuan upon the predecessor's death. The new king does not have to have any relation to any of the previous ones to be a legitimate king, however sometimes it does happen, to varying results. For the most part, the Phoenix Kings have been pretty solid, so this part of the system works reasonably well. However, as each king rules till death, especially bad Phoenix Kings can fuck up the High Elves for hundreds if not thousands of years. Here's where it gets a little bit complicated. Whilst Phoenix Kings are elected, Everqueens are not. The firstborn daughter of the previous Everqueen and current Phoenix King becomes the next Everqueen when her mother dies. If the Phoenix King, her father, outlives her mother, then it is his sacred duty to fuck his daughter to produce the next Everqueen. This goes both ways. If the new Phoenix King is the son of the previous Phoenix King and Everqueen, then it is his sacred duty to fuck either his mother or his sister. Yikes. To be fair, if my sister or mum was an Everqueen, I'd probably fuck them as well, so there are worse situations out there. A newly wedded Phoenix King and his Everqueen wife only need to be in a committed relationship for 1 year before they can go off and be thoughts with everyone. Tyrion and Alariel started fucking and made a daughter out of it. So there you go. Overall, the High Elf political system could use a bit of adjustment, but it's not as bad as Bretonnia, who just rely on some pond thought to hand out swords and blowjobs to decide who gets to be a lord. Alright, so now onto the end times. I've already covered the lore of the end times in detail, so I won't pour over every detail. If you want to see that, then you know where to go. Basically, the elves almost had a good plot for the end times, which was sabotaged by Asuryan being a demented cunt, and Malekith being the hero without any real redemption arc other than, yo Malekith, God said you were good now, so yeah. Here's how it goes. Teclis starts chatting to his god Lilith, who's a bit of a cunt, and gets informed that the world will get turbo fucked by chaos unless he does something about it. Teclis decides that the best way to deal with it is to let Manfred kidnap his niece, Tyrion's daughter, and violently sacrifice her to bring back Nagash. Like I said, Lilith, and by extension, Teclis, were cunts. Finubar one day realizes that Asuryan hates him and that he is cursed. Teclis took down some magical warders protecting Finubar's tower and allowed Malekith to summon a demon of Khorne into his tower. Finubar has given up by this point and he allows the demon to kill him. Tyrion was notably pissed by his daughter vanishing and his king dying. Eletharion was sent to try and save Tyrion's daughter but ended up getting killed by Arkan the Black. To make matters worse, Malekith arrives in Ulthuan, and it is revealed by OG Kalador and Teclis that Malekith was the true king all along. This causes a large number of elves to join with Malekith, including Alariel, who sees it as her sacred duty to marry Malekith, despite the fact that he's been trying to get her killed for hundreds of years, and he even sent a Slaneshi demon to try rape her on her own wedding night. Fuck. Malekith easily gets into the flame of Asuryan and walks into the fire once again. This time he withstands the fire and absorbs the power of Asuryan, killing Asuryan in the process because apparently the god of gods used all of his power of thousands of years cursing the other Phoenix Kings for defying his unknown will. Now pretend you're Tyrion for a second. Your girlfriend leaves you for your mortal enemy, your brother arranged the death of your king as well as the death of your daughter, your people turn on you, and even your gods don't support you. Naturally, Tyrion drew the Widowmaker and he infused his soul with the power of Cain. The west of Ulthuan belonged to Malekith and the east to Tyrion. After a bit of fucking around, they met on the Isle of the Dead and they have a massive epic battle. Tyrion, Avatar of Cain, battles Malekith, Avatar of Asuryan, but the god of war is more powerful than the god of shitty narrative and writing, hence Tyrion beats Malekith's ass and prepares to kill him, only for none other than Alethana to pop out of nowhere and shoot Tyrion in the back, killing him and Cain. For good measure, he also non-fatally shoots Malekith and says, "Don't be a shit cunt or I'll shoot you again." With Tyrion dead, most of the remaining elves pledge themselves to Malekith, and they leave Ulthuan to meet up with the Wood Elves at Athel-Loren. Teclis undoes the vortex in order to supercharge some of the remaining heroes, and Ulthuan sinks beneath the waves. A number of the elves, including Malekith, Alariel, and Caradrian, absorb some of the winds of magic, giving them superpowers. Teclis pulls a fast one and murders a human god in order to revive his brother Tyrion, now free of the curse of Anarion and bound with the law of light. The elves rejoin and form a little Avengers squad, with Malekith, Teclis, Alariel, Caradrian, and Tyrion. Not that it helped much anyway, as they failed spectacularly, with Caradrian being crushed by the greater demon Kabungda, Teclis exploding after trying to solo defeat Chaos, and the remaining three having a sulk as they were consumed by the destruction of the world. Tyrion, Teclis, Malekith, and Alariel all return in Age of Sigmar. However, Malekith is now a wacky shadow demon, Tyrion is blind, Teclis is still a cunt, and Alariel has extreme PTSD. I'd still fuck her though. And that does us for today, guys, the entire lore of the High Elves. I do give these guys a lot of shit, but they're honestly one of my favourite factions. I'm currently running a heavily modded High Elf campaign at the moment, and loving every second of it. Speaking of Total War, I've had an awesome response to me and Legend streaming together, and I can confirm we'll keep doing more of it in the near future, so I hope you guys enjoy that. If you want to support the channel further, then Patreon would be amazing. My channel is slowly getting demonetized, and even $1 helps me out a shit ton. You also get access to a massive library of Warhammer hentai. Classy hentai. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.